Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on my channel. Today I'm going to be going over some tips that I've come up with to make your synths more realistic. Now, what I mean by that is like sometimes you'll hear a synth that you've put together and it sounds very robotic and flat, not necessarily like man-made in a way, if that makes sense. And there's actually a few things you could do that will get rid of this in a way and make things sound a bit more real. I have an example here that I'm going to start off by demonstrating. I have this like cool little synth solo that happens in this track that I'm putting out soon. And I'm going to go over what I did to this, maybe even show an earlier version before I did this, to kind of demonstrate how I made this sound more real and cool. So I'm going to start by playing this section right here, and I am talking about, as you see, this lead line that's going to come in and be played here. It sounds like this. Right, so I think that sounds pretty cool, and you probably noticed right away there's the pitch bend. That's one of the things we're going to be talking about. But to kind of compare this to what we did have before, I'm going to drag in an old version before I did this. So the older version, that section actually goes a little like this. You see, the sound design is still there, it sounded pretty good, but what ended up happening is it just kind of holds that note for a really long time, ends up being a bit boring. And I'm going to demonstrate all the things I did to make this just sound a bit better. So this synth actually has two different patches in it. There's this main one that sounds like this. And as well, if we turn off that automation so you could hear it without the pitch bend, listen to this. So the sound design is still good because it's still like in its place, but it doesn't have the cool like pitch up right here, for example. And that's something that's really nice because oftentimes you'll find that's neglected in the more like robotic stuff. It doesn't really do that, especially because the curve is not something you just kind of click in and it exists. You kind of get a feel for it. You draw it in yourself. You see, I'm not just doing like a straight incline up. Rather, instead, I've just kind of done it to feel. And I have the same exact thing going on patch 2, which is like a more stereo layer. It sounds like this. That helped quite a bit. As well as this, we are going to take a look at the MIDI information. Because you see, rather than just have like long notes only, and then just like a descending bit here, I'm doing a couple of like cool slidey things, like this where it goes from the D to the E really quick, right here. And I have this little shrill right here that goes from the C sharp to the D. Cool little touches like that just add additional depth to your melodies and make them more interesting. We're also going to be taking a look at the effects of the sound as well. You see here from the pattern, this is on mixer 36, so we're going to go over there and take a look at what I put on this sound. So you see, on the mixer itself, we only have two things, but I could take them off. Notice how harsh that sounds with these two effects removed. All I'm doing is I'm adding an EQ like this. This was me getting rid of a lot of unnecessary frequencies. The sound was very strong in like the mids right here, low mids. I ended up getting rid of that, and we rolled off a ton of the highs, because you'll find if you're going for more realistic synths, not a lot of things have just like constant noise up here. Like you wouldn't really find that in like something that would exist. A lot more like real things, if you're thinking of like, say, pianos, guitars, they're chilled out up here. Up here is really a digital region, if that makes sense. And you can see if we turn this on and off, you could very clearly get away with getting rid of that. So like, off versus on. Sounds darker here, but if you remember, you probably didn't think this sounded dark when I showed you it initially in the mix. It just works. And we also have an instance of soothe. This was another like technical thing just to get rid of harsh frequencies like this, but the real kind of, I think, sauce for this sound is actually in the patch itself when I did some chorus, delay, and reverb. I want to take off those three for a second so you can hear what this sounded like before. This was another example where it's just very dry. The chorus adds some necessary stereo, the delay gives it something to listen to kind of in both ears and the sides, and then reverb for space. Putting your sound in a space is a great way to make things sound more realistic and good, because things aren't going to be completely dry in real life, ever, for the most part anyway. There's always that little bit of like room noise wherever you may be, and it's good to kind of simulate that because it makes your synths kind of have their own space to exist in and sound more real. That's how I went about that. I think this is a good sound to kind of demonstrate that on because you have the things like the pitch bends and just creative use of effects to make things sound better. Let me know if you have any additional tips for stuff like this in the comments below. But if this video did help you out, don't forget to drop a like on it and subscribe to stay up to date with future music production tutorials. But that's all. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.